Roland will join us. All right, calling this meeting to order. Let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll go into the approval of the agenda. Those of you at HQ, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, President Hoover.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, Vice Chair Rowland.
Good evening.
Can I get an approval for the agenda tonight? Motion by Commissioner Teoflack. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lawrence. Is there any discussion? Not appearing. All those in favor of the agenda, say aye. Aye. All those opposed by nay. All right, motion passes. Thank you. The consent agenda. Item A, payroll for summary and authorization for July 2022. Item B, payroll summary and authorization for August 2022. Item C, healthcare EFT claims totaling $205,367 and $0.60. Item D, claims vouchers 12236, 12284, totaling $69,963.32. Claims vouchers 12285 to 12304, totaling $283,782.57.
I see different numbers.
Oh man, you are right. I am looking at the wrong agenda. Why did that one come up? I am sorry about that. Commissioner Fahrenhoff, good to see you tonight.
Sorry about that. I was apparently arguing with Outlook on where the link was today. So
Also, that makes all the commissioners in attendance tonight. Commissioner Kenny has an excused absence. Thank you, Commissioner Teoflack, for letting me know that I was looking at the wrong agenda. Tonight's agenda has the item A being healthcare EFT claims totaling $63,130.78. Item B, healthcare EFT claims totaling $133,972.50. Item C, claims vouchers 12305 to 12334, totaling $180,321.48. Item D, claims vouchers 12335 to 12368, totaling $1,153,544.97, for a grand total of $1,530,969.73. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Lawrence, and is that a second by Vice Chair Rowland?
Sure.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? None appearing. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 5, approval of meeting minutes from August 2nd, 2022 regular meeting and August 9th, 2022 special meeting. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve both meeting minutes. Moved by Vice Chair Rowland. Is there a second? Excuse me, second by Commissioner Teoflack. Any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. All right, motion carries. On to public comment. Is there anybody from the public in the attendees list that wishes to make a comment? If so, please do so by raising your hand. None appearing. We'll go on to introduction of our new finance manager, Aurora, and I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Well, Chair, it's okay because I mispronounced it when I introduced her to staff. So Belly. So it's a little bit of a struggle, but her first name is Aurora, and she is a very kind person who has joined our team. She has worked in the past with our Chief Financial Officer, Chris Bothwell, both in a history, most recently at the city of Bothell. And we're very pleased to have her join our team as we've elevated the finance director position to chief financial officer and to have her as a finance manager. And I think Chris may want to say a few words, but I think Aurora speaks for herself. And if she would like to introduce herself to those members in attendance, our staff here and our commission, and also member attendees, Aurora, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. And yeah, the last name is Belli, but I respond to Belly, not a problem. My name is Aurora Belli, and I am so fortunate to be part of South County. I have actually been here for a little over a week. And since I've started, it's just amazing the welcoming that the organization has given, whether it's people popping their head in my office introducing themselves or the numerous smiling faces as we walk down the hall. It has been wonderful, and I am doing my best to get up to speed as quickly as I can. And as daunting as that may seem, I'm very fortunate to have a finance staff that is very good at answering questions and is helping me with every step of the way. As was mentioned, I have worked before with Mr. Bothwell at the city of Bothell, and I also worked with him at the city of Lake Forest Park. So very fortunate in that my history with Lake Forest Park will really benefit me because it is also the same type of cash basis government and things of that nature that will kind of help me along the way. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I am very privileged and thankful to be here and to help support all of the great work that this organization does on a daily basis.
Well, thank you, Aurora. And when Lake Forest Park served by the North Shore King County Fire District 16, the North Shore Fire Department now merging with Shoreline Fire Department, I know that you know how important it is for city governments to think about how they would regionalize and also make sure that their fire and EMS services are taken care of due to the limited funding of cities as they consider how to take care of their residents. So we appreciate you and also your history with CFO Bothwell and also your history with Bothell, and just want to Miss Belli, just welcome you to our team and thank you, Chris, for being someone that wants to have people come to work with you that worked with you previously. I think that's very important as we continue to make sure that our RFA is financially stable, sustainable, and we move forward with our best foot forward as we grow as a regional fire authority. So Aurora, thank you for joining our team. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Chair.
Commissioner Farnahoff, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say welcome aboard on behalf of the fire commissioners. I'm new, right? So now there's somebody newer than me. So good on you. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming aboard.
Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say the same thing. Welcome to South County Fire. So I assume CFO Bothwell must be telling you how wonderful everything is in here, right? So I'm glad that Chris, that you're still believing so much, you even bring your people that you know. Looking forward to working with you guys. Thanks.
Yes, welcome, Aurora. Oh, Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yes, welcome. And now that you're here, we're going to have to find something for our CFO to do. So I'm glad you're here. We'll think of something for him to keep him busy. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll go on to the fire chief's report.
Commissioners, thank you. I didn't have any requests for any further information on any ARAP discussions here that's pursuant to our packet. So I'm going to start with just this, and which is the Maplewood K through 8 elementary and middle school located in the Edmond School District that my stepson goes to. I want to thank Engine 16's crew led by our newest captain, Skylar Peterson, for joining the approximately 400 students there last Friday and the additional 300 or 400 parents putting our best foot forward representing South County Fire and joining the festivities there between 4 and 7 p.m. I'd like to thank the crew and also the short notice, because as we continue to emerge from the pandemic and engage with our communities, they did a great job. So I just want to thank them. And with that, that concludes my fire chief report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Commissioner Teoflock.
With the dry weather we've been having, has there been an increase in fires, whether it's structure or grassland?
We actually had our Snohomish County Fire Chief Association meeting earlier this week, Commissioner Teofilak, and one of the things that Fire Chief Andrews, who is in charge of Sky Valley Fire, mentioned is that really the Bolt Creek fire and the easterly winds and the red flag warnings when happen really put us in a precipitous spot right now to have more fires. But as far as structure fires at this point, no, we've had some little grass fires and urban interface kind of fires, but we've been pretty fortunate. If you have been around here for any amount of time and can remember in October as dry and warm as this, then you get $2 from me. But the world is changing as well as our really weather. This may be an anomaly, but I'm here to tell you that wildland season could be any of the 12 months of the year. So to answer your question, no, we're pretty steady with that. And commissioners, I will send you our first watch look and our COVID data during this meeting, and I'll send that to Melissa Blankenship. But it's been pretty steady. I think what I see is a little bit of an increase in respiratory type calls due to the basically the poor air quality. When I was up this morning, we had a 71 AQI in our RFA over the top, which is basically if you are at risk, you are going to cough. If you have asthma and those sort of things. And as you know, 85% or so of our calls are EMS, and those are important things to consider. So with that, Commissioner Teofilak, that's all I have.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, Chief. Actually, this kind of brought up by, for those who don't know, Commissioner Merritt just retired from last year, and he was the fire chief for Linwood. He brought up the question for me. I was thinking about that too. The latest on 156 and Aurora, it was burned in the middle of the night and the roof and all this stuff. So I read it as kind of suspicions of arsonist. And then I think we have a series of them. And the other one I remember, the big one, is the one that in Edmond near the Asian market. That place was actually happened in 911 September 11, about a year ago, and the place is still kind of still not I don't know, no reconstruction, everything else. So Commissioner Matter did mention something that I did ask Chief Fitzgerald when we were up there that the city of Linwood used to have a I don't know what you call it, a rule, whatever it is, that if any unoccupied property, the owner still should monitoring either ADT, whatever, that type of monitoring. I was just wondering, this is my concern too, is I see a lot of, along a road, a lot of kind of empty, block up property. So I'm just curious, I don't expect you to give me the whole answer today, but how we monitoring them, and also if there are violations of not having a monitoring system, what can we do? And how do we actively try to look at that? You know, the arsonists become a threat to us. For all, some of you pretty young, there's, what's the guy there who is in jail now? Paul
Keller.
Keller, yeah. He really started a whole series of fire and is terror. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Commissioner Chan. So SR 99, which is Aurora, that goes to, Highway 99 and then becomes Evergreen Way, has a lot of authorities having jurisdiction. It'll be parts of Edmonds, unincorporated Linwood, and the city of Everett. That's a lot of jurisdictions, some of which we aren't part of, and some of which for enforcement, code enforcement, and making sure there are sprinkler systems. And you mentioned alarm systems, fire alarm systems. It's a really complicated issue, in and of itself. When Paul Keller did his fires back when I was, cutting my teeth, I guess, if you will, 90s, and some very significant fires very early on in Southwest Snohomish County and other places. Fortunately, some of our RFA has come together covering those cities. But I'd like to turn this over to Chief Fitzgerald to talk about what we can do when unfortunately businesses fail, or if we have a significant event like the Plum Tree Plaza fire north of what's the old Kmart there at like 232nd and Highway 99 right there, and the Ranch 99. Chief, can you talk a little bit about what we can do and what we are not responsible for and what we are responsible for in that Aurora to Highway 99 transition to Evergreen? Thanks, Chief Fitzgerald.
Yeah, certainly. And the fire that Commissioner Chan you're mentioning was at 15806 Highway 99. So just off of 156 there, the strip mall on the west side of the highway there. And so it's interesting. One of the challenges that we've had that I've experienced since working here at South County Fire for nearly 2 years now, the enforcement authority is challenged. It's challenged at the city level, and certainly our team are challenged as well, trying to negotiate city codes and city policy and staff as well. In fact, we're at the point where we've re-envisioned how we might address enforcement in the future, and we'll come back at some point to the commission and present our proposal, which essentially is a contract with the city assigning the enforcement authority for the fire code to South County Fire rather than to the city itself. It is a big challenge for us because while we can identify the deficiencies and the violations, we don't have the enforcement authority. That relies with the cities. So we have a strategy to address that, but you are correct that in certain cities, not all cities, there are requirements for even vacant buildings to maintain their fire protection systems. In the case of the Alfe's fire that Commissioner Lawrence had asked about at our last meeting, that was a case of a vacant building, not abandoned, but a vacant building that was in the process of being renovated. And they had a partial fire protection system in the basement, but not a complete system. And so that becomes a challenge when you try to tie historical buildings into the current fire code. How do we enforce that, and how do we even recognize what code it was built under to see if it's compliant today? So a lot of challenges there. You bring up great points, and I would caution that while we know that the fire at 15806 Highway 99 was intentionally set, that doesn't mean necessarily that we have a serial arsonist by any means whatsoever. We're working very closely. Fortunately, our team protects the cities in question here and investigates those fires, but we work very closely, of course, with the County Fire Marshal's office and working to compare notes and see if we have a problem that we don't know about, but right now we don't know that we do.
So I remember, I don't know when you would switch it to the international code. Remember that?
Yeah,
So,
it was about 2003 when the first,
2003.
yeah.
Right. So one of the concern is that are we abandoning some of the local code and stuff like that because we go to the international? Because a lot of these codes are written for particular certain cities and that type of thing.
Well, the International Fire Code is a model code that is based off of the backbone of, the former code, the Uniform Fire Code. And so a lot of the authors of the Uniform Fire Code came over to author and edit the International Fire Code. And then, of course, at the state level, the state gets to make changes to that, adopt, amend the code as the State Building Code Council sees appropriate. And then also at the local level, each city and or county, each city and county, it's not or, because you're either a political jurisdiction being a county or you're the equivalent in a city. And so each city and county can also amend that as well. So that's where we get into the challenges with enforcement, but also just the application of the code itself. City to city, the rules are different, and we've worked very well with our cities, in particular during the 2018 code adoption, which went into effect in 2020, to try to align those cities' codes as best we can.
So on the unoccupied building, are they still required to monitor some kind of monitoring of the fires?
If the system is required to be there, then it is required to be monitored, yes.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the last one I read, 156, the one that the fire burned up to the roof before we got a call and respond. So that's my concern, and because that not only that building itself, the neighborhood is in danger if there's no monitoring system. And I can understand the arsonists, I mean, pretty well famous, the one that a lot of arson is just for insurance money, right? The most famous one is the House of Pan in Chinatown that killed 5 Seattle firefighters, and it was for insurance money. So that's something that my concern is, because we see a lot of unoccupied office because of COVID, the landlord couldn't get the renter in and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to give you guys more updated. I think we should be really
Sure.
proactive on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Ping warehouse fire in Seattle, definitely arson. You
Right.
mentioned that. We call the fire on Highway 99 incendiary in the sense that it was intentionally set, but arson is a criminal term. It's not a fire investigator term. We use the term incendiary. Arson is a law enforcement term, which means that the person had criminal intent when they set the fire, which is obviously the case at the Paying warehouse fire, not necessarily the case on Highway 99, but we leave that side of it to law enforcement for sure.
So when they set the fire, are they still kind of criminal, but not as intentional arsonists, I assume?
Well, it's a crime, obviously, to start a fire, but what we see is a lot of behavioral health issues with a lot of the residents and unsheltered persons who
Right.
reside along Highway 99. And so we don't know necessarily the state of mind that is required legally to term it an arson. That's why we just know it was intentionally set, but it wasn't necessarily intentionally set with the notion of trying to burn down the building, unlike the Paying warehouse fire.
Okay. All right, thank you. And you say you're going to come back to us with some kind of arrangement with some of the cities, that type of thing, so we can enforce?
Yeah, certainly. When
Okay.
when fire chief's ready for us to bring that back, we'll certainly do that. But that's our strong recommendation, is that we obtain that enforcement arm of the fire code. We're applying it, but we are challenged to enforce it currently.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think Commissioner Chan and Commissioners, sort of the kind of in summary, the fire part of what we do can be 1 to 3% of what our activity is, or we've talked about our utilization, the hours that our staff apply. But it is thinking about what Chief Fitzgerald and I talked about actually earlier this week, when the Phoenix Fire Department looked at Maricopa County and really dove down into the impacts in a 12-month period and had fire responses that really had impacts on 90 people's jobs just on one of their fires, and had economic impact stops by saving a structure to be able to save what they estimated as, revenue to the county, or having a working business that years ago, over a decade, equaled to $26.2 million. It's not just what we do to save people's lives or make a difference in our communities and our EMS, but the very important thing when it takes place to think about the economic impacts for businesses, to keep those buildings minimized as far as fire response, keep people working, keep them having incomes for their families, have those taxable structures, or those revenue sources for our cities and our counties, and just supporting our communities that go to work every day. It's a really big impact. The multiplier is really immeasurable, but they did a good job of trying to do that. And Chief Fitzgerald and I talked about this just the other day, and being able to, quantify that is really hard, but it really is, for the people that we serve, when they do have the unfortunate event of a fire response, whether it's a residential fire, a multifamily apartment, the people that own those buildings, or a commercial fire, it has impacts on our communities that are felt in many different ways. Even if people travel to those places of business that don't live in our regional fire authority. So I appreciate Chief Fitzgerald's summary and his initiative, and we look forward to talking more about this in the future. So thank you, Chief, and thank you, Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a commissioner, because every single fire draw a lot of resources, right? I don't know, one scale, 3 trucks, 7 trucks, 9 trucks. I mean, that's a lot of resources draw on, and then that will occupy, and then we have not available for some other thing. So if anything we can do preventable, that's Chief Fitzgerald, that's why education, prevention. I always believe in prevention. So anything we can do, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our legal report with our attorney, Rich Davis.
Good evening. So just to quickly summarize the work over the past month, pretty much the same kind of work as normal. We provided staff advice on a variety of issues and questions, have dealt with some contract drafting and review. We continue to deal with the real property acquisition issue, and there's a few Mill Creek transition issues that we have assisted with. The only other thing I really wanted to mention tonight, and you probably have talked about this since I don't attend every meeting, but I did want to just, since I'm here, mention the governor's proclamation declaring an emergency due to COVID-19 is ending at the end of this month. And the effect of that on the Open Public Meetings Act is we had a new section to the law that was passed earlier this year. It was called a declared emergency, and it allowed you to have remote meetings and to limit public attendance in the event that there is a declared emergency. So that is going to go away at the end of the month, which essentially means that meetings must return in person. So you have to have an in-person component. But commissioners, the thing that didn't change is those commissioners who need to or want to attend remotely can do so. Even before COVID, you could attend remotely as long as the public could hear and everything that the remote attending commissioner said. So that option still remains available to you. Agencies are encouraged to offer a remote option, and it may be South County Fire's plan to go ahead and continue to do that. It's not a requirement under the statute, but it is encouraged. The only other thing that I would say is for those commissioners who may be attending the conference at the end of the month over in Spokane. I will be there along with a couple of colleagues from my firm who are in the fire and EMS practice group, Aaron Haynes and Matt Paxton. Frank Schmelik will also be there. All of us have various presentations. And if you're there, be sure and say hi, and look forward to seeing you if you're going to make it over there. With that, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Anybody have any questions for our attorney? Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, hey, Rich, are you going to be zooming in from after in November, or going to be physically coming?
That is something I have not yet had a discussion with the chair about, so I will be doing so in next week or so.
All right. Well, I won't be at the I'll be doing that online at conference. So we'll see you maybe somewhere down the road.
All right. Sounds good.
Any other questions for our attorney? All right. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Union report, President Hoover.
Thank you, Chair Daniels, commissioners, staff, and guests. I thought initially I was going to say that my report might go longer than the fire chief's report. However, it ended up going much longer, so I blew my whole thing tonight. Anyways, I also want to welcome Aurora to the Finance Division. Nice to meet you. Looking forward to working with you. And to Commissioner Teo Flack, I just wanted to say that on my last day at work, which was Sunday, we did have 2 small brush fires that would never have risen to the level of any of the chiefs on here by now for this report. They were very small in nature, but it's the only time I can remember having a brush fire in October. So it did happen. Again, they were small, one along I-5 and one kind of on the other side of the wall of I-5. So very small. These guys probably will find out about them later on in their ops notes. But yeah, it happened in October in Western Washington. So just kind of interesting. But with that, that's all I've got.
Thank you, President Hoover. Any questions? All right. Thank you. And on to unfinished business. We have our City of Brier discussion with the timeline and process with DC Eastman and Attorney Davis and DC Maxwell. Which one of you three wants to go first?
I think I'll start, Chair Daniels.
Sure.
Good evening, Chair Daniels, the rest of the board. I guess we'll start by saying, if you don't know, the City of Brier a week ago passed a resolution requesting annexation to the RFA, and that is included in your packet. The agenda bill is on page 52 of the packet, and so I think that's great news, and I think all the commissioners probably heard about that shortly after we received word that had happened. And so I know we've done this before, and that some of this is going to be a repeat. There's a formal process, with regards to what happens from here, and we'll go over that just briefly. And it's in the agenda bill, and I'm going to ask that Rich or Leslie or Sean, if I miss anything, please chime in. If you go to under the discussion in the agenda bill on page 52, the first thing that happens is the city requesting adopts a resolution that requests annexation into the RFA. That has happened. The city's done that, passed that forward to us, and we have received that. The next process is the RFA and the city meet and discuss terms and conditions of annexation. Part of that is we need to revise the RFA plan that incorporates the City of Brier into the RFA. And then the other agreements necessary to do this, and historically, we do pre-annexation agreements and potential temporary services agreements, and the other things that deal with, property, transfer of other assets, transfer of liability. In the case of Brier, we don't have that. These agreements should be fairly straightforward. And we've already reached out to Rich Davis and his team and starting the preliminary work on getting the appropriate documents drafted. There's a requirement to perform a CEPA review. That's really happens behind the scenes. There's some reporting requirements and some timeline requirements that things have to be posted. We'll be starting that, once again, working with Rich's office to do the CEPA review with regards to that. And then once we have the agreements ready for the governing bodies to take action on, including the adoption of the amended RFA plan, the board would need to pass a resolution that adopts the amended RFA plan, and the subsequent documents, i.e. a pre-annexation agreement, temporary service agreement, or any other document that's required as part of the annexation. And my understanding, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the resolution to amend the plan is the formal acceptance of the RFA, allowing the city of Brier to annex in. Is that correct, Rich?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then once we pass the resolution of the subsequent documents, then that goes to the city. The city then passes the plan amendment and the subsequent documents, and then the city needs to take further action and by resolution to put the ballot measure on the ballot. And then there's the other requirements, a pro-con committee and explanatory statement, stuff that the city will need to do as a result of that. And so that's the formal things that need to happen with regards to the city of Brier annexing into the RFA. And I think with that, I'll pause for a minute and see if there's any questions of the board.
Any questions? Not seeing any.
Perfect. Now it's our understanding in conversations with the city that their intention is to be on the ballot in April, which requires them in mid-February to send the resolution to the county to make that happen. And we've worked everything back from there. So staff is working hard to get you draft documents. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Rich, but our goal is to get him to you as soon as we can for your review prior to taking action, and then being able to forward those on to the city for them to do the same. Staff would ask if the board would consider the motion that's attached to the agenda bill. And what we're trying to do with this is to send a positive actually, the fact that the board is happy that the city's requesting annexation, and that we're encouraged by it, and for you guys to direct staff to go make that happen, to let the city of Brier's electeds know prior to the formal adoption of the amended plan that the board is in favor of the city annexing into the RFA. And Chair Daniels, with that, I'll stop and take any additional questions that the board may have.
Any further questions? All right, DC Eastman so far so good. Oh, Attorney Davis, do you have?
Yeah, just to follow up on Chief Eastman's comments. I think what we're asking for tonight is just kind of the head nod to move forward with the annexation proceedings. There's a cost involved, obviously, in drafting up the amendments to the plan, the ancillary agreements that are going to be signed at the same time. So while this is not a formal binding action that we're accepting the petition, it's just our intent here is to make sure that the commission wants to move forward and and take the actions necessary. And then, as Chief Eastman said, once those documents are have been prepared and reviewed by both the city and staff for the RFA, we'll bring those back to the board for final approval, along with a resolution that accepts the petition.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan.
Well, thank you. I was surprised that it's 7-0 vote. Maybe Chief Hoisman can tell me that when we had to do the presentation, you and I do a tag team. You did most of the work, of course. There was a lot of questioning from certain members. Can you tell me, are there any expectation from them? The particular thing they're looking at and we need to, be aware of?
Commissioner Chan, to be honest, I think when the discussion we had with them, that you and Chief had with them at their council meeting, and then the response we gave the city in response to Mayor Kay's letter to us wanting a few things clarified, I think that made things very clear for some of those that were having questions. I'm not saying they're all happy about it, but I think the fact that we need to make sure that what everybody pays is being served by the RFA is paying equally and fairly. I think that message was sent, and I think they're moving forward in it. And as of right now, we had a meeting with the city of Brier post their meeting on Tuesday. Leslie and myself went and met with the mayor pro tem and Paula, and really didn't get any indication of that per se. I'm sure there'll be additional questions that will come over time, but I think between the conversation that we had, the last meeting we had with them, and the correspondence we responded back to with regards to the questions that the mayor answered, I think that answered the majority of the questions they had, and we have not received any further questions since the correspondence was sent back.
And I'll, Commissioner Chan and Commissioners, I will add on to what Chief Eastman is talking about. Is, as a former Mount Lake Terrace Brier firefighter before I joined Fire District 1, it's a great message, I think. Not speaking for the city of Brier or the whys behind where their council approved 7-0 to send us a resolution, very similar to the last city, the city of Mill Creek, that voted 7-0 as well to join our RFA. But I think for whatever those reasons are, as a very strong stakeholder, our historical regional fire authority for well over 20 years, that the city of Brier's elected officials have spoken unanimously about what they want to do. And I really appreciate yourself, Vice Chair Rowland, Chair Daniels that was there, and also Commissioner Fernohoff that couldn't make the meeting. It's nice that we went down there and our message was heard. Our message has been heard, and now we have received their formal message and request to join our RFA. So I want to thank all members of staff and the commission for this very long process. And again, as a former Mount Lake Terrace Brier firefighter, this has been a work in progress for well over 2 decades. And I really appreciate the city of Brier Council, Mayor Kay, I will call him, and all the staff that's helped. And I would also want to thank Melissa Blankenship for her assistance through this process as well, coordinating our commission and our staff for their good work. So with that, I have nothing else to say, but other than thank you.
No, I'm happily surprised, so surprised. Another reason, the letter you mentioned is the one that we have an intergovernmental committee review that, and that was sent, right? So with the committee members are well aware of it. One thing I want to make sure for this intergovernmental committee, I want to be as transparent to the rest of the commissioner, and that's why we have Melissa sent out a note for our meeting. So there was some misunderstanding during the the Mill Creek situation. So I want to correct that, make sure that there's no other, they insinuating or we promised something that is not on the paper or anything. It seems to me that's what they expected. So I want to make sure that Commissioner Kenny is not here. Just want to make sure there's no other thing that the expectation that.
I
is not
appreciate,
right.
no, and I appreciate that. And I'll let, Chair, with your, okay, I'll let Melissa speak to that as in the city of Mill Creek and as in the city of Brier. And if for the, so willing, the city of Mount Lake Terrace or the city of Edmonds or any other entity comes, that the staff has made no promises or anything out of our ability to do so and our roles within this RFA, including the city of Brier. Sometimes it takes 21 years for the Seattle Mariners to make the playoffs again. And 2001 was when Terrace and Brier joined the fire district, now the RFA. So I am on the record once again in this recorded meeting to say that I make no promises, and neither does staff. Governance has their role and so do we. And I only speak on behalf of those that I work for, and the 300,000 and the 6,400 in the city of Brier and the 3 square miles. So, and trying to advocate for RRFA. So thank you for the question, and asked and answered, sir. Good question. Thank you, Commissioner Chan.
No, thank you. Actually, just like, I was at the game when Mariner had the walk-off home run. People stay in there, didn't leave. All right, thank you.
Any further questions? All right. The chair would like to entertain a motion in recognition and affirmation of the city of Brier's request to direct staff to take all necessary and appropriate steps to prepare for the city to move to annex into South County Fire, including preparing an RFA plan amendment.
I'll make the motion.
Been moved by Commissioner Chan and seconded by Commissioner Lawrence. Any further discussion?
I just say the staff did a great job.
Yes, they did. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same, say nay. All right, motion carries. Chief Hovis, you wanted to
Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate the unanimous support and the motion and support. Commissioner Chan, as chair of the Intergovernmental, I would like to thank you in particular. And also I'd like to thank Chief Maxwell for being part of this endeavor as we work with our current assistant and deputy chiefs to make sure that we are a team and a team of teams moving forward. So thank you, Chief Maxwell, for this this accomplishment on behalf of our RFA and the team. So thank you, sir. Along with Bob Eastman and Leslie and Mike Fitzgerald and everybody else. So I just want to say good job. So thank you. Good job.
Well, Chief, since you mentioned, I really appreciate my fellow committee member, Micah, and also Michael. And we give them a really short notice because of timing. They just jump in and meet the meeting. I appreciate you guys very much.
thank you. All right, we'll move on to item B, redistricting ad hoc committee. I'd like the permission from the commissioners to create an ad hoc committee just for that purpose. So do I have a motion? Vice Chair Rowland, was that a motion? Thank you. And Commissioner Lawrence, I was second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Oh, for discussion, Commissioner Lawrence, did you have a comment? You're on mute.
Never mind, I forgot my question.
Okay.
I'll be back.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any further discussion for this subcommittee? All right, all those in favor of creating the subcommittee say aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. Thank you. Oh, we have an opposition. Okay. I will visit with each of you to find out who would like to serve on the subcommittee outside this meeting. And then, thank you. Item C, we have as presentation of the fire chief's preliminary budget. Chief Hovis and CFO Bothwell, you have the floor.
We'll start with CFO Bothwell. Chris, you've got the con. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I have a very brief presentation, and then I'll hand it over to Chief Hovis to say a few words about the budget. All right, so like I said, the agenda is very brief. I'm going to go through navigating the budget document, where to find some key points. So I recognize that not everybody wants to read the budget cover to cover, so I'm going to direct you towards 6 key points and where to find those in the budget document, and then we'll move on to next steps, and then I'll hand it over to the Chief to say a few words about the budget. So I have 6 items for you. The first one being the executive summary. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see it says page, and there's a dash between the two, or a distinction between page 4 and the other page. The reason that that's there is that it's page 4 in the budget document. It's page 77 in your packet. So the first item I want to draw your attention to is the executive summary. It's sort of a self-explanatory document, but it is a 1-page budget summary containing a mix of narrative and data points. And it's a great place to find just a really quick summary of what's in the budget. The second item is the Chief's budget message. This is effectively the Chief's transmittal letter. It describes what's in the budget, what's not in the budget, and a lot of the factors that are affecting the budget proposal. The third item is the schedule of decision packages in the proposal. So you may recall that we started the budget process with a revenue forecast, then we went into expenditure forecast, then we talked about the status quo budget. At the end of that, we moved to decision packages or discretionary budget adds, and we spent 3 meetings talking about those. So this schedule is a list of those discretionary budget changes that actually made it into the Chief's proposal. The next item is a property tax levy analysis, and there's a graph and a table that compare the proposed levy rate based on the Chief's proposal to historical rates. The fifth item is the operating budget summary. It's just a really simple comparison of operating revenues and operating expenditures to determine whether or not an imbalance exists in a surplus or a deficit. And you'll notice it's a very small, less than 0.2% deficit in this budget. And then the final item is the long-range forecast. And this is the 6-year forecast that we presented during the status quo budget presentation, but it's based on the Chief's preliminary budget. So if you're looking for more detail, it's in there. There's a few, I'll highlight some of the summary, less detailed documents, but there are some even more detailed documents in there in the budget package. The first one is revenues. We have there's a comparative revenue report that's based on the revenue forecast. And there is a section for description of changes for all of our major revenues. Next is operating expenditures, and this too is comparative, meaning it compares the Chief's preliminary budget proposal to the 2022 budget, and it is done by division. And there's additional details later in the document that support that schedule as well. And then the final item here is capital. That starts on page 20. And so all the capital purchases that are budgeted in the Chief's preliminary budget are listed there. And there's also a reserve analysis for each one of the 3 classes of assets that are recognized by policy: apparatus, equipment, and facilities or building. And there's lots more background and additional details throughout the budget document. So if you're interested in any of the topics, you're going to find a lot more on those in the budget document. For next steps, this tonight represents a pretty big milestone when the Chief hands over his preliminary budget. That officially starts the Board of Commissioners budget deliberations. Then on October 18th, we have 2 public hearings scheduled, the first one on the budget and the second one on the benefit charge. And then ultimately, the end of the process is budget adoption. That's all I have, and I'll hand it over to Chief.
Thanks, Chris. So thank you and welcome again to our organization. So this is really your first budget cycle, and I appreciate your perspective, commissioners. I know that we've had a long history of budget processes as a fire district, and we had a status quo budget in 2020. In doing so, we endeavored upon something we talked about for nearly 2 decades: finding a fire benefit service charge for our RFA. In 2021, I asked for a few additional things as we continue to navigate the COVID pandemic. And now in 2022, we did have some mid-year asks as far as finance and HR goes. We asked for a data analyst the previous year, but I asked for things, and because of the unknown of the economic conditions and the pandemic, we tried to stay very lean, understanding our external stakeholders, our taxpayers and residents, and also the needs of our RFA. I would like to let you know that as now someone that has served as your fire chief for the equivalent of what Chief Stedman served here and Chief Dahl in the interim, so both of their tenures, that I understand this role and this position that I have been granted to serve now in my 27th year as your fire chief and as a member of our organization. 2.5 years under my feet, that I am going to ask for things, and I hope for your support as elected stakeholders of our regional fire authority for those things that we need, recognizing that we cover 300,000 people, nearly 1/3 of Snohomish County, as the third largest fire department, depending upon whichever measure you choose to look at, third largest in the state of Washington. I have asked for the things that I think are appropriate to where we're at, with the city of Mill Creek joining our regional fire authority, understanding that the economies of scale that have been basically envisioned and actualized with 5 different fire departments, the cities of Edmonds, Mount Lake Terrace, Linwood, and Fire District 1 and 11, those economies of scale need to be actualized in service for our communities. I'm going to follow up after this meeting with an additional graphic tomorrow on our organizational chart. And commissioners, I'd like you to look very carefully at page 79. And in doing so, I have been, I've talked to you about what you think as the CEO in this position now as an organization, what I would like to see leading this organization, both for sustainability and also having the span of control to be able to serve, and also to fully actualize my roles, duties, and responsibilities in my fire chief goals. You will see a reorganization chart on that on the top half, and I'll build upon that as we go through this budget. My budget message to our stakeholders, you as commissioners, our staff, and the nearly 300 residents we serve, really comes into my fire chief's budget. And I'd like you to think about what it says on page 81. And I've talked to you about the Centers for Public Safety Excellence 21st Century Fire and Emergencies Services white paper. We, as an RFA, voter approved, combining Fire District 1 and our service contracts and the city of Linwood, have to focus on re-identification, culture, use of data, the health and wellness of our communities and our staff, the partnerships that we can capitalize upon, sustainability of our organization, and sustainability of what we are as a leader in the fire service, not only in the county, in the state, and in the United States. That is my vision, and I believe, commissioners, you share that. The use of technology and becoming increasingly more inclusive of our communities. And I wanted that to be in our budget message, because some of the things that I'm talking about as page 82 and 83, I'm asking for additional FTEs. You will see I'm asking for an assistant chief of EMS, which in turn would help EMS, which is a primary portion of our business. I'm asking you to support our ACT coordinator position. We're over 10,000 people served, to be able to talk about how our communities can help us before or when 911's called for tourniquet, CPR, and antidote. With everything that's happening with opioids in our community. I'm asking you to, I'm going to pivot off our grant program administrator and grant writer ask that I had before, to see what we can look at for other revenue sources to be able to support our programs going forward, and see where we're at with that. I want to recognize that our organization is a leader, not only in life and fire safety, but that we need to build on what Fire District 1 had when Leslie Hines was just the one person as a PIO, when we were about half of our size. We talked a lot about facilities, and we have a lot of them. And I need another facilities employee to support our operational staff. The other things, if commissioners, if you would remember, Battalion Chief Devon Ogerkow talked about some of the things about tactical functional movement screening, and also our solo washers, basically anything that involves fit testing or keeping our people more safe from the inherent dangers of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and being able to what we call healthy in, healthy out for the primary members of our workforce. That's important to me, as I know it's important to you. You don't have to look or breathe through the air to understand that the Bull Creek fire is still having significant impacts on our community, even if it is moving through the air. Our workforce and our communities have grown, and through the great partnership that goes back decades with Support 7 and our chaplain group, I'm asking for a minor increase in funding for chaplain services, not just for the communities externally, but even for our employees that might need them, including me in the past. I'm also asking for a brush truck. Frankly, there is brush trucks in a lot of different places, but if you don't think that you can't turn in a circle and see wildland interface type areas or brush areas within our RFA that can't just be addressed with a structural fire engine, I would just ask you to give me a call so I can take you to the places in this community I grew up to say that we need that. Our people are ready to apply that. And through the good grace of Snohomish County Fire District 22 Getchell Fire that they've loaned us one, I think it's time for us to recognize what we are as a regional fire authority. There's an electronics update for Marine 16, and interestingly enough, if you don't notice, I got my haircut today and met somebody at the Lake Serene community that's an HOA president who was surprised to hear that we didn't have the ability to go out on the water from Lake Serene Fire Station 23 to be able to, if anyone of any age gets out on the water, that our folks, our good men, women, and persons can't be able to supply that resource. We named the fire station Lake Serene Station 23, and it's in my budget. I think with that, the one thing that I really want to focus on is we have added Mill Creek, and I'm asking for a deputy fire marshal. That one portion of our workforce is frankly needs support. Mill Creek has joined us. We need that. It's in my budget. And also the training battalion chief. When I joined Mount Lake Terrace Fire and we were all different agencies, I just want to tell you that it's extremely important, commissioners, as you know, that we make sure that we recruit, onboard, and support the best people that we choose, and they choose us to join our RFA. I've been here 27 years, so frankly, it's a 30-year equation. They need the best training and skills and support to be able to do that. And in making sure that we have a battalion chief that is able to look over the big picture underneath Deputy Chief Wells to get hands on our people and be able to support everything that happens with that, both for our new employees and our incumbent employees. It's critical from a risk management standpoint, and it's also critical to supporting those people that want to join our team, and we give them the support and give them every chance, not just the first year, their probationary period of their career, but also for the next 29 years. So in summary, as someone that's been served very well for my family by our regional fire authority, these are my asks. We are fortunate enough to be in a good economic condition where people want to join our team, including the city of Mill Creek and now the city of Brier, and I think other cities in the future we currently serve, and other maybe fire district RFAs or cities in the future. We presented over 3 different meetings. Staff and I took the input. I have made some pivots, and I look forward to conversations about this budget. I know this is a tough time economically for our communities. I know that we have historically been at a different spot in time. When this RFA was formed, we were at $2 versus 1,000 of assessed valuation. If commissioners, you would approve this budget, we will be at $1.20. I would challenge anyone in any RFA fire district to be able to have a commission and a fire chief and a staff and our union and all of our stakeholders to be able to say what we do for what we are great, our gracious taxpayer support for us. looking this from a dollar standpoint, this is an amazing time. It's an amazing opportunity. I'm asking this because I think it's right. I stand behind it. If I want to get on the record about that, and I believe in this budget. I believe in the process. I believe in my team. I believe in the people that have elected you to serve. And I believe, and I know this is a tough time for everybody, but in the role that I'm in, I believe in this, and I hope you do too. And with that, I'm going to pause and just want to thank, welcome to the team again, CFO Bothwell, welcome Aurora. Thank you everyone in the room and that's watching online for your contributions to this, all staff that are here and those that are not, thank you very much. And I'm going to pause and turn it over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have two questions. My second question will be about the budget. First question is something I'd like you, Chief Ovis, and CFO Bothwell to think about for next meeting. And that question is, now that we've hired Finance Manager Billy, the CFO can concentrate just on being the CFO. And I'd like to kind of know how things are going to be for you, Chief, and the CFO. What's going to change and how things are going to, work, how you guys are going to work together now that the CFO's freed up a lot more to be the CFO. And that'd be, if you could come back next week with the answers on that, just for information, just more curious. I don't have any agenda about that. Because, I was very much a proponent for having a CFO. Now the question on the budget, last meeting, Commissioner Chan came up with what I considered brilliant, idea. That is not us as commission line item vetoing this or that, but just to have a total amount and say, okay, let's vote on this total amount. So I'd like to know what you, the CFO Bothwell, and you, Chief Ovis, think of that idea, because sounds like to me a good idea at this point anyway. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Commissioner
sir.
Lawrence. Commissioner Teoflock, you have your hand up.
Hold on a sec. That was a question I'd like to be
Oh.
answered.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were looking for the answer tonight.
Yeah, that's the next one. The other question for next week. This is for now. I think they can answer that.
Yeah, Commissioner Lawrence, I appreciate that because I know that is a good question, and I think I just want to make sure I understand the question correctly. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to lost you on my screen here. There you are. Page 82 of the budget looks at the different dollar values of the proposed ads. So essentially a summary of the decision packages themselves. And I will follow up with you particularly, or we can definitely talk about this at our next meeting, is how with the addition of Aurora Belli as finance manager, how that might change CFO Bothwell's role. I will mention to you, commissioners, we met with staff from the city of Mount Lake Terrace earlier today just to talk about where they're at and their considerations of potentially having their council do a similar resolution and send it to the RFA. Just like Brier has. And I kind of giggled. I looked over to Chris, and because we had a conversation afterwards about the changing roles, that now with Aurora being here, and she's very new, so let's please give everybody some grace where that is going to take us organizationally. And Chief Eastman, understanding his pivotal role in a lot of things in the past going forward, and the work that we've done with the benefit charge and with regionalization, even with you with District 111, I think there is I guess in summary, Commissioner Lawrence, what your vision was and what the commission's vision was. I think with the addition of Aurora, that we're going to be able to, for the balance of 2022, 2023, and 2024, achieve the goals that I've been tasked with, that this commission is interested in doing. And this was a missing piece. As far as the particular items for the total cost of what those different items are in the packet, on page 82, I'm happy to talk about any of those, Commissioner Lawrence, or any commissioners, if that makes sense. I hope I answered your question. I'm not sure if I did. I'm trying to.
No, I'm not sure. You may
Okay.
have, and I just missed it. So,
Okay, let's
so
so I will say overarchingly, commission, again, if you need to talk to any member of staff, I'm not the person that's going to need you to ask for permission. There's no bylaws associated with me and staff. If you have a particular question for me during either a meeting, or if you'd like to contact me or another member of staff that's here, please do so. We want to be entirely transparent, and any questions that have the benefit of the entire group, we will bring back to our next meeting.
Yeah, Chief, you're so transparent. I can see it right through you. So
Well, hold on. I didn't wear an undershirt today, so yeah, no, I'm just teasing. So,
all right. So, no,
thanks,
but
thank you,
just-
sir. And if it's okay, Commissioner Lawrence, CFO Bothell wanted to say something because it might help too.
Yeah,
for
maybe he'll answer my question.
I'll try it. I'll try. Kick it over to you.
Thanks, Chief. So just as a practical matter, Commissioner Lawrence, we are in the board's budget deliberations, so you can kind of direct us to do whatever you want. So if you look at the list of the schedule of decision packages that are in there, and you ask the chief, I want you to prioritize these, or what if we trim the $2.3 million down to $2 million? What would you get rid of? I mean, those are very reasonable questions to ask during the board's budget deliberation. So if you and Commissioner Chan and some of your fellow commissioners have an idea of what that number would be, I think we can have a real conversation about that. But this is exactly the time to have that. This is just the chief's proposal, and having those kinds of conversations and doing some analysis to support kind of the decision making in the direction you want to go that's right where we're at. So we've got lots of time to do that. So I hope that's helpful.
Well, yeah, I think Commissioner Chan's idea is that, well, we're not the professionals here. We don't really know what's the most important, what the priority is. So no line item vetoing or what you can ask us what you can do without. It's just that the commissioners get together and say, well, we'll give them their budgets this amount, and they got to work it out and do what they got to do within that budget, not us get into the weeds about a fire truck or a canoe for Lake Serene or whatever it is you're going to get. So yeah. So I'm asking you, what do you think of that idea of just us saying, here, lump sum, this is what we decided, live with it?
Well, my reaction to that is that the chief's probably going to say, these are the things, this is his proposal. And so he's probably going to say, these are the things, if we had to prioritize, that would come off of this list if we were limited to a certain dollar value. So, I mean, there will be, I think that there's going to be a connection with this list if we go down that road. And so it's, those decisions will be kind of out there for you all. So, I mean, I think
you guys prioritize what you want within the amount lump sum that we vote on. So, Commissioner Chan, could you fill in on us a little bit? I don't know if I just confused things or not. I'm going to shut up now.
Commissioner Chan, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think I view it to Michael first. His hands up first. I'll follow up on that.
No, I was just going to reframe the conversation back to exactly what Commissioner Chan was asking for, which was essentially a budget. Go ahead and prioritize. I would just ride coattails on that and looking at the list here and say, okay, chief, if you had to right now and you wanted more a brush truck than you wanted fit testing or tactical function screenings and some of the other things that may be above the line, we had this list more or less prioritized. Because at the moment we may say, well, we can't support everything, but pick and choose what you want. We'll make sure that you get it, make sure that we still have wheels on the bus. But I'll throw it back to Commissioner Chan. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose our place in thought. Thank you.
Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to previewed it to you that Commissioner Daniel and I had met on Friday. It's very great of you. I show him about the reserve fund that we have for the equipment and everything. That is really the administration call. When did they buy it and all that stuff? And actually in this budget, you have that too. So another thing is that CFO Bothwell, you said that no one will read page by page. That we suppose it page by page, okay? Because this is, first of all, this is a very good budget, except that you move the format around. I have a really tough time tear up this, tear up that. Well, I got okay. But one thing, we have done that before. It's not, that's during the time our commissioner basically say, here's a lump sum money we have. Go and see what you want to do. The main reason, the approach we have is that we make sure that we have a reserve enough to better this stuff. So right now, I'm just looking at the reserve fund. I get a couple of questions in here. Example, so page 45, either the number kind of a little bit different. It says the compensated balance reserve fund, right? From 2022, you drop it to $667,000. Does not make sense to me because the compensated balance is, I think is if I read correctly, is the sick leave and vacation, right? It depends on the employee at the year end. So how can you have more people? How can your reserve fund drop? It doesn't. Yeah.
Commissioner Chan, that's a really great question. So last year, so for 2021, so before I got here, we actually overspent our budget in that fund, which is a problem. And so I put in a flat $1 million rather than just putting in the amount that we had set aside. I put in a flat $1 million for those payouts. Those payouts were obligated to make. And the amount that we put into that fund, so the ending fund balance isn't really reflective of what might happen because it's really difficult to predict.
Right.
By policy, we put 12% of the compensated balances liability that we calculated for the 2021 annual report in there. And the reason that I put a flat $1 million in there was just to dial it up a little bit in case we do have some additional retirements or separations that cause that number to go up, particularly towards the end of the year, which tends to happen. That way we won't have to scramble at the last week of December to say, I need a budget adjustment. We got to get the board together to approve a budget adjustment. So it's a great question. It's a really keen observation, but that's why it's done that way.
Well, but even that, your budget is not what you want. Is by law, you have to reserve it. So the 607, it could be gone up. So then, and I look at all the, actually, I first of all, I want to take my reputation, Dr. No, from myself. Okay. Number one, I want to emphasizing that, Chief, you said, oh, 21st century, but it's not, it doesn't mean that blankly anything is 21st century fine, we just support it. What I'm saying is that whatever we can afford, okay, not every single check off and, okay, so that's, I think. And then I talk about the lump sum, that's, we've done it before. And I think I want to do it, a similar thing. But actually I think you're not enough in reserve. Because to me, a storm is coming. This storm caused by two things. Number one, the recessions. I don't know if you know that. I sent over them the housing value for this area have dropped. And basically, I think Seattle area like 47%. Idaho is 60-some percent. A good example is my son just bought a house in Ballard area. Not only he did not have the competition, he actually were able to get a concession from the seller because the house is kind of old to do that. So you can see that, and I'm looking at our assessed value will not be significant increase or even drop next year. Okay, The second thing is that light rail. I've been mentioned many times, light rail is coming. Okay, so I would suggest that, I don't know how you're going to do it. Go to banking capacity, put another $2 million more into the reserve fund, especially in the building fund, because we need more money to able to do a lot of immediate repair that we need, because we don't know when we can do the bond fund, because it depends a lot of interest rates and environments and the mood of the market. So I rather have, so on the opposite, I'm asking you to get more money into the reserve fund. I will look through that. There's a lot of good suggestions here, but again, I think Commissioner Lawrence, my God, the first time you said I have a good idea, that we don't want to micromanaging your budget, all right? And I still remember, but there was some of the items I may not feeling, hey, I don't want necessary. I will express my opinion next week. I still remember when we go and get the bulletproof vest, right? I was hesitating, is that really, do we need it? So I want to know, how often do we wear it as all the personal, how many times we use it, right? But if I dare not to reject that. What happened is I say no and someone get hurt, then I'm stuck with, disapprove something. So again, Lauren said that right. You need to prioritize what is important to you and what you need. And then of course, you can still negotiate certain items. So we got every go, if they come back next year, next week to see what the number is. The way I see it is that how much reserve I have and what other funds available. Actually, I did went back the whole week going through all our prior since 2011. And I sent everybody out a financial guideline that we done in 2011. And that is what we guided. In there, we basically, a couple of things I want to mention about, we said here, the district would avoid adopting a budgetary procedure that result in balanced current operation costs at the expense of future years' operation. That's what we need to watch out. And also to say, no budget may be adopted by the board that exhibit a negative fund balance or anticipated deficit within the subsequent 2 years, as long as that is not in the situation. And then Chief, you and I have, remember your first proposal, it was like, you were like, deficit next 3 years. And I'm glad you accept that, you correct that, and come up with a much better budget. So that's the two guidelines I have. As long as you don't have, deficit next 2 years, 3 years. But I do anticipate we will spend a lot more money than we anticipate when the light rail is coming. So I want enough money to reserve for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. I appreciate that too, as Sound Transit 2, tries to figure out what their timeline is due to supply chain issues and labor issues, and comes to the city of Linwood. That will be subsequent budget years as we try to reinforce those boots on the streets. For commissioners that weren't part of the Regional Fire Authority Commission back in the early years when we added 12 plus 8 personnel with the City Gate study for plus 20. For commissioners that weren't here, that Edmonds has now got back to their 2010 staffing levels. We've done that, but really this budget cycle, I have tried to be so cognizant with staff of what I'm asking for. And Commissioner Chan, I was in a different role back when we talked about buying a drone and we talked about ballistic vests. And for me, it's about, I've been here. I was at the 2016 Mukilteo mass shooting where 3 teens died, where my daughter was there, and we transported the one person that lived that was shot. And, commensurate to Washington Administrative Code 296305, we do need to provide our responders protective equipment commensurate with their duties and responsibilities. And having not had that then, which is why I asked Chief Dahl for that. And that's the benefit of being from, I would call, quote unquote, the streets in our area and having those experiences so I can communicate and connect with you as the elected stakeholders of the communities and residents and voters we serve to think about those things that you've generously been able to approve in previous budgets for those very important items. I appreciate the comments on prioritizing because I think this is that process, as CFO Bothwell has, clearly described. This is that time, and I can certainly do that. But I do want to just touch on, just for the record, and Commissioner Chan, I don't feel like and all commissioners, I'm not saying anything about you, Commissioner Chan in particular, is the International City Managers Association, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, the International Association of Firefighters, and the Centers for Public Safety Excellence. When you get those stakeholders together to figure out what those priorities are, or lenses or filters of what we need to think about as the fire service adapts and reacts to the needs of changing communities across our nation, that is a lens that identifies with me. And that is something that with my staff has also connected with them, because I think that I can stand behind that. And I think you can stand behind that. And I don't think there's anything in that document that is you are the checks and balance as elected officials. One of the, Commissioner Kenny's not here. One of the most important thing I think he would say is the most important thing that you do as commissioners is approve the budget. But as your fire chief and as a CEO of this organization and someone that has done this job, I will not ask you for anything that I don't think we need. However, commissioners, I understand your role and I understand mine. I work for you and the public, and you work for the public, and I work for you. And in that, I will come back next week with a list of priorities, and they will be based on the needs of our communities and the health and safety of our organization, period. And I will strategize on other things. And if, for example, like a brush engine, if we want to rely on Sultan, Gold Bar, and Getchell for that, I'm okay with that. I just want to get on the record what I think we need. And we can strategize on that, because I appreciate we're having this conversation, which I think it already is more productive than our last budget cycle. And I appreciate, Commissioner Chan, your historical perspective, because many of us in the room and are watching lived through that Great Recession, those very difficult times, and you in a leadership role leading the commission at the time. So I appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate all of the commissioners' perspective. And now I see Commissioner Teofleck's hands up, so I'm going to pause, but thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Can I kind of answer your question quickly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, about the bulletproof, we're not saying that we don't provide bulletproof, but at that time particularly, you want everyone individual fitting it. And that's why you said everybody have their own comfortable. So that's the difference. That I said, well, I mean, first of all, how often do you wear it? And second, that you know what happened to quit. So that is the big thing. But let me say you one more thing in here. It written in the guideline is that the encouragement of technology and process improvement, which will reducing service costs without reducing service quality. When I first come on, you guys still using pencil to fill out the form. Yet we're encouraging you to go with the computer, iPad, whatever it is. So we are not saying don't spend money, just spend it wisely. All right, and also summarizing it, some of the fire district spend paycheck to paycheck, okay, and they didn't get the level rate, they die. And some of us, in our own thing, we save a lot of money, and so I would like to the one to save a lot of money. So then when we need to go, not paycheck by paycheck.
Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that, Commissioner Chan. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan and Chief Hovis. Commissioner Teofleck, you have your hand up.
Yes, I had some questions on the the revenues, but it's about 8:30 and I guess I would take a break first. That's okay.
Thank you. I would like to take a pause for 10 minutes and then come back here at 8:40. And so that way we can step away for a moment. Thank you. People back. All right, continuing where we left off. Commissioner Teoflat, did you have any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess it's for CFO Bothwell. Just a comment on page 84. I like the visual of the different buckets of the, I guess, our different funds. So that's kind of how I think. So I like that visual a lot. My question is about revenues, and what I'm trying to figure out is how much someone like myself, what percentage of my taxes will go up next year based on this budget.
That is a great question. And I can bring back an analysis that will actually speak to that. One of the things that's challenging about preparing that analysis is that we know that property taxes in this budget are expected to go up a little less than 4%. That doesn't mean that your property taxes, your charge is going to go up from the RFA up by 4% because it's all kind of shifts from year to year based on changes in assessed value from different places within the taxing jurisdiction. So what we can do is we can kind of average it and come up with this is the incremental cost based on property owners in the RFA based on the average and do some analysis that way. So I'll make a note and we'll bring that back to you next time.
Okay, great. And then like the way that it works is, so there's the the levy rate, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's safe to assume that for someone like myself, that would just go up by 1% due to the Iman rule.
That's correct.
And then the benefit charge for like residential people like myself, in the budget is assumed that would go up by 2%.
That's correct. And so the reason for the difference is that the property taxes increased by 1%. That's allowed under state law. We also get the value of new construction that we get to tax that came to the tax rolls. And so that adds another 1% to our property tax collections for the year. And the historical perspective of the board has been that the fire benefit charge or the benefit charge should increase at the same rate. And so that's why we increase it by the rate of the overall increase in property tax value or property tax collection rates. And so that's why that goes up by 2%.
Yeah. And I don't know off the top of my head, but like the benefit charge is like what, 30% of a person's usual bill?
Well, it's split differently than property tax because it's not based on assessed value. It's based on the burden on the system.
True. Yeah.
So I don't think it's it would be difficult to make that. We could see if we could identify what that, figure out an analysis that would kind of get to that. But I don't think it's quite as easy as how it doesn't have that same connection to assessed value or to the value of a property that property tax does. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So before the kind of analysis that you might do you think in general, like most people can expect a 4 or 5% increase?
So it's possible I shouldn't speak to this because I, risk misspeaking here, but I would say it would be less than that because I think that the benefit charge tends to favor residential properties. And so if the overall increase is 2% for the benefit charge and less than 4% for the property tax, back of the envelope would kind of tell me that it's probably going to be closer to like 3% or maybe below 3% for an average, bill, the annual property tax and benefit charge bill from the RFA for a residential customer, residential property owner. But
okay, great.
We can look at that too.
I was assuming that we'd have to increase more because of like the compensation increases that all employees have received. But just new construction and adding Mill Creek have kind of offset those increase in expenditures.
Well, yeah, and the other piece of that is that GEMT has been kind of earmarked for the building fund, and so that's being put into the general fund. And so I believe last year it was about $3.5 million that was going into building that's now also going over for operations. And there's just $500,000 in the chief's proposal that goes towards the facilities major maintenance fund. So that's kind of so it's about a $3 million difference there. And that's an infusion of GEMT as well.
Okay, excellent. And so do you have an idea of when we might want to do a levy lid lift?
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a broader conversation. We can definitely pencil that out. And I think one of the things that's really important is to look at the 6-year financial forecast that we're publishing with the budget. Take a look at that. Take a look at the revenue capacity report that we visited or was presented at the kickoff for budget season, and just look at the cash flow analysis and figure out what that looks like. There's obviously two pieces to the levy. There's the EMS piece, and then there's the general fire levy. And we can kind of look at that and figure out where it makes sense or start to plan for the year where we'd want to potentially go to voters for that. We do have, one of the things I think is important to also an important part of this conversation is that we also have some bank capacity left for in the general fire levy with the chief's proposal about $5.5 million. So we do have a levy that's or a lever that we can pull effectively without having to go to voters as well. That's in the general fire levy. If you decided that an EMS levy lid lift was the direction that the board wanted to go, or that made sense, then maybe we'd still want to go to voters. But there's a lot of moving parts there, and I think it's a great conversation to have, especially during budget season. But we can start to pencil that out as well.
Okay, and so if I heard you correctly, there's still bank capacity with chief's budget.
Correct, about $5.5 million.
Okay, gotcha. And I guess one question that I have regarding that is, if we were to use all that bank capacity, what would that mean for the taxpayer? Instead of like that, what you're assuming a 3% increase, would that mean like a 5% increase?
It's going to be more significant than that. So 5.5. So our property tax levy is about $59 million. So it's probably about a 9% increase if we were to exercise all of the additional bank capacity. So it'd be more significant.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is a follow-up, commissioners. I know that our stakeholder cities, for example, Brier that has a permanent EMS levy, Mount Lake Terrace that has a permanent EMS levy, Edmonds that has a permanent EMS levy, and also Mill Creek, which didn't have one, which is a motivating factor for them to annex into our RFA. And just our communities that we serve already, or those that might be thinking about annexing to our RFA, it's important to have an EMS levy. So we do not have a permanent one currently within the RFA as well. Commissioners, new commissioners and incumbent commissioners, back when we went to a fire benefit charge, remember that was a 6-year measure, voter approved in 2020. So we need to think about benefit charge within the scope of the 6-year period. We need to think about EMS levy. We need to think about both. We're going to go for a term of 10 years on benefit charge. We're going to go for permanent. As one voter within the RFA, I would, at the end of the day, it's the commissioner's choice to do that. We need to strategize about that, especially with all these moving parts, or I would call spinning plates in the air, as we continue to think about our RFA stability of revenue. So just want to, Commissioner Teal-Fleck, you asked a very good question. We need to think about those things going forward. So thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Bothwell and Hovis. Vice Chair Rowland, you have your hand up.
Just one thing. There was one item that I'd like to get more information about. We don't have to do it at this meeting. Maybe we could put it on the work session. I don't know how stacked that is for next week, but just get more information around the scuba cleaning apparatus at Intelitech Rescue Intelitech Solo. It looks like they've been around in Sweden for a while, but just came to the United States recently. And so I was just wondering if we had information on track record, reliability, things like that, before we get into a $250 million capital purchase, plus that includes the installation and everything. And also want to understand kind of the strategy for placing those units and the use of those units. So we can cover it next week. I'll give you time to kind of gather it. If there's a rep that can answer questions that you can have attend, that would help clear up just a few things on that.
Not a problem. Thank you, Vice Chair.
All right, that's it.
Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up. You're on mute.
I just follow Micah's questions in there. Number one is that since new, so I like the this proposal suggestion by Commissioner Thornthal, Michael, that he said that why don't we have a mobile unit or just one unit? Because number one is how often do we have fire, right? It's very seldom. And can we each one have 2 units? Why don't we just buy one and see how it works and then expand it rather than jump both in our feet? That's my thinking. I think Michael has a very good suggestions in there. We might think about that.
One thing, just since we were talking about it, just one thing I did notice, Commissioner Chan, I don't know if it's possible to do the mobile unit because of the power requirements, the plumbing, but it's definitely worth looking at. I know it's at least 3-phase power going into it. So that's part of the installation, is getting that put in. But yeah, I'd like to know if there's a way to do it too. And
No, yeah, actually, I'm not meaning mobile unit, but just have one station, try it out, and then you expand it. That's what I meant. And just to go to laundry, just drop off and pick up tomorrow, next day,
One more thing, Chief Hovis. After looking at that, one of the concerns, at least they had with the units, was the wastewater. I mean, right now, I guess we're cleaning by hand, so the wastewater is coming out. But if there's all these carcinogens in it, they do have a product to filter that water before we release it, given that most of the water here goes into Puget Sound at some point. Would like to understand that piece of it too.
Thank you. Perfect. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Farnoff.
Yeah, this is probably a question that's already been answered, and you guys ran the approval for it. But I noticed in the line items in there were 3 Braun ambulances that were purchased. Was that also something that you had to bring before the commission? Because obviously those 3 Braun ambulances were in excess of, I think it was $275 or so per unit, as opposed to the brush truck, which is about $250. So I was just wondering, was that pre-approved before my time, and that's how they became? Okay, I see Chief Eastman's north and south. So thank you. Just curious about that.
Any other questions on this topic, Chief's budget? All right. Chief, you're getting off pretty light tonight.
It's a team, it's a group, it's a team sport and a group effort. So appreciate it, commissioners. I'm sure we'll have more discussions. So thank you.
I think we can count on more discussions. So thank you.
And we'll practice the dog pile.
You've seen my ears. I'm a rugby jiu-jitsu person, so the dog pile I'm used to, so no problem.
All right, go on to item 12, the committee updates. Bylaws, Commission, Vice Chair Rowland.
So the Bylaws Committee met with the parliamentarian. We've got kind of marching orders. However, it looks like with Jim Commissioner Kenny being gone here till October, late October, there's probably going to be no progress unless the board would like to appoint another member temporarily to help work on it while he's gone, and then just cycle them off. It's really up to you guys if you want to get that done. Otherwise, I wouldn't see this coming before the board for ratification until December at the earliest, if we have a one-way pause or a 1-month pause.
I can go ahead and appoint myself for the month of October just to keep things moving along, and then recuse myself as soon as Commissioner Kenny comes back. So I'll go ahead and do that. Thank you for the report. Is there anything further? Vice Chair Rowland, anything further? Is that everything?
No, nothing further.
Okay. On to intergovernmental with Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, so you guys saw the memo, the email from Melissa, so any more question asked us? And I also too, I just, Chief Hovis just met with the monitors today. Maybe you can just briefly updating everybody what's going on and when the our committee will meet with them.
I'll take the second part first, Commissioner Chan, as I'm waiting to hear back from interim or acting city manager Stephen Clifton from the city of Mount Lake Terrace. We did meet earlier today. Members of staff that were there were PIO Hines, myself, Chief Eastman, CFO Bothwell, and Chief Fitzgerald. And I'm going to actually give Chief Eastman the con to just talk a little bit about what we discussed today. If you could, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. I guess just so I was doing assessment center, so I got in a few minutes late to the meeting. But with the recent changes of staff in the city of Mount Lake Terrace, they have a new finance director. Obviously, you guys now know that they have an interim city manager as they go out and search for a new city manager for the city. And so most of the meeting today was just talking about process, talking about what requirements there are to the process that they need to go through to become part of the RFA. And those topics were the main topic of conversation that we discussed. We sent them some information with regards to timeline. If they wanted to be in February, their runway is through the 16th of December when they have to have all the information of the county. And so for the most part, that's what staff talked about with regards to where we go from here and what next steps are. Chief offered all the support we have to help them get up to speed because they have new staff, and assured them that we will make ourselves available whenever they need us to provide whatever information as they continue to have this conversation move forward. I will say they did talk about the desire to have our intergovernmental meet with their I'm not sure what they call their committee, but their equivalent of our intergovernmental. And I think Chief Hovis is going to talk a little bit about that. They are waiting to get back to Chief and let them know when that happens. I think our staff prefer to do it sooner than later, just as a result of if there's a desire for Mount Lake Terrace to be on the ballot in one of the special elections, they need to get rolling down the runway and start doing the preliminary work that needs to be done to do that. And so, Chief, I think that's the high level of the conversation we've had with them today.
I think that's a great summary. And then intergovernmental chair, Commissioner Chan, Chair Daniels, and commissioners, a member of the commission and the intergovernmental committee. As soon as I hear back from the acting city manager about his desire for their RFA exploratory subcommittee made up of 3 of their council members, I will inform Melissa Blankenship immediately, and we will see if we can get something set up, understanding that hopefully we have a little bit of a lead time, and Melissa does a great job of making sure that we can connect the dates and the dots of times and availability. That meeting will most likely be virtual based on their requests, but if in person, we'll definitely either host here at the RFA or at the city of Mount Lake Terrace, most likely at their city hall. So please stand by for more information. At this point, the city of Mount Lake Terrace has had a lot of change, as Chief Eastman has mentioned, and we want to support our very early stakeholder, our first contract city, Brier and Mount Lake Terrace, as they go through this very difficult time. We wish all of their staff support and appreciate all the staff that serve city of Mount Lake Terrace and Brier, through station 18 and 19. So there's nothing else, Commissioner Chan, that I've missed. That's everything from staff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Quickly, curiosity, the overall timeline. So Brier is looking to be on the ballot in April, and then Mount Lake Terrace is looking to be on the ballot in February. Is that right?
It's early discussions with the former city manager, not subject to either council approval or prior to the formation of their RFA exploratory committee, would lead me to believe in my discussions with the previous intergovernmental committee and this intergovernmental committee and this commission chair, that that was a possibility for February 2023. There is essentially a number of bites at the apple, as I termed it today, because the 20-year terms of the initial agreement signed by Brier and Mount Lake Terrace do not expire until December 31st of 2024. So there's a number of election cycles possible, and commissioners and, all meeting attendees, just keep in mind that your February and April election cycles provide the opportunity to take effect August of the same year, and then for January of the next year for us to collect revenues from the county and the transition of a contract city or a new entity. So that would be a number of different chances. Chair Daniels, I just don't want to speak out of turn. I do not know what the intent of the city is currently, but they have a number of different choices, which could be February, April, the primary, the general, February, April of the following year, that would all align with 6 bites at that apple that would align with, I think, our goals of the RFA and the goals most likely of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan, do you have anything to add, or is that
No.
your report? Okay,
That's all. Thank you.
thank you. Still now in one, has not met since I last spoke on that. We have a meeting coming up here, second Thursday of the month will be finance, and then the full board meeting will be the third Thursday. So I won't be able to speak until the next meeting, or actually after the next meeting. So commissioner comments. I did need to bring up that board member Mike Todd did mention that he was very iffy whether or not he was gonna be able to make it tonight, because he had some things to take care of there for the city of Mill Creek. So I didn't do that earlier in the meeting like I intended to. I also got an email from, as you guys know, from Commissioner Kenny that he would be out this month. So his absences will all be excused. Any other commissioners wish to make a comment? Commissioner Chan.
Actually, it's a questions. The ambulance, private ambulance, cephalic, how do you pronounce the name?
Falk.
Falk, just Falk, okay. Closing down. And in the article, it said they have 100 employee. They said this is all well taken care of. Do they have any impact on us? That somebody
None.
might not get a private one, they would call us or something?
No impact. Private ambulance in Southwest Snohomish County is very incrementally available. Their bulk of business was generally inner facilities, as noted in the articles, for their reason for stopping their service. They did not come into this area until the middle of perhaps of last decade. They're a multinational Danish corporation, and so the answer is 0 at this point that I anticipate happening. Chief Maxwell, would you agree?
Yes, Chief. I suspect a very minimal impact. We might have secondary impact if they're struggling to move patients around between hospitals and hospital wait times. That would be the only secondary impact.
Yeah, I just read a related article. They contract with City of San Diego, and they were just trying. They have a behind and all this stuff. It's amazing. The whole big city like that would contract them to do the.
Yeah, the only thing, Commissioner Chan and Chief Maxwell and the chiefs had mentioned this, if we do have that impact for interfacilities, or if they had contracts with our hospitals, we might need to consider as an RFA or other entities in the greater Puget Sound area, what those impacts might be, to make sure that we have the staffing to make sure our residents get to where they need to go. And there may be an opportunity in somebody else's inability to meet their business model. So I just want to get that out there. So I see no direct impacts. Chief would agree, but we just want to be cognizant of that. So
yeah, we got to watch out. So when we need it, we need to able to do it.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important, and it's why it's important that we have a resilient BLS transport service, because over the last few decades, many fire departments have been left standing in the wind when the privates disappear. And I think that is the third story in the last 2 weeks of this occurring in the nation. So as the economy changes, we're gonna, that is one part of our system where we have a strength and resilience because of the way we choose to operate.
No, that's when I saw the article in San Diego. The city can do nothing on the response time. We control our staff. We can control the response time. So I think we make the right decision.
Thank you. Any other commissioners wish to? Commissioner Farnoff, sorry, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think the only thing commenting about Commissioner Chan is we won't have a direct impact as far as 911 getting there, meeting our response times, all of that kind of thing. I think it's the trickle down effect that we're going to experience, which are already experiencing. They come to the ER, there's no way to move patients out of the hospital, get them to the next facility or discharge to somebody with legal care. So the absence of another ambulance service might just delay that process or impact it. We saw rural metro roll into AMR and dismiss X amount of employees in order to remain sovereign. This kind of effect might also see that wait time increase. I know that we just had a hospital financial meeting yesterday, or maybe that was today. I haven't gotten the full rundown
Today.
on it, but we got hospitals in trouble financially as well. So we as an RFA need to keep an eye towards that. Basically, we're meeting our end of the bargain and we're taking the patient where they need to go, but then we may be stonewalled when we get there. So that's just my comment.
No, we're part of the system, so we cannot alone. There's a chain reaction there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was well said, Commissioner. Thank you. But I think it is a credit to the commission and our organization, the way we are structured. This isn't the first time that privates have disappeared. Probably won't be the last, but we're much more resilient, I guess is the best word, organization. We can take these impacts and continue to serve our public. But that was very well said. Yeah, that we can have that trickle down effect with hospital wait times.
I guess just in closing, I'd like to, I've sat in his chair before, but, President Hoover too, and the IFF just wanting to, make sure that from the implementation of 911 to the hospital, from the whole entire response, that our workforce historically, all 5 legacy agencies and the agency even that served Mill Creek as well, that has been something where we serve our community. So nice job by all. So thank you.
All right. Any further commissioners wish to have any comments? All right, none appearing. Then I go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, commissioners. Good night.
Good night.